All right. Is it okay if we call you Dr. B?
Yes, that's nobody even attempts the last name.
Brooke goes, dibs on not saying her last name. I was like, I think we could call her Dr. B.
Wait, but how do you say it? Just so that I know.
Bundukamara.
Bundukamara.
That is a powerhouse.
See, now I want to say it as a challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, anything off limits?
No, nothing's off limits.
Okay.
I guess I could ask you the same thing, right?
Yeah. Oh, you know what?
I did listen to a lot of your stuff. I mean, it sounds like you're open and vulnerable and you like to go deep.
We like to go there.
Yeah.
I also like to show guests if my bra strap completely came undone in this moment. So really nothing's off limits. So we'll just, we don't need that.
All right, there we go. Oh, that's so funny. This is going to be a great episode. We're off to a great start.
Unhinged. I love it. Okay, love you.
Love you. Oh, this is great. Okay.
Welcome back to Ivy Unleashed. We are having a moment right now. I am, because I'm laughing. Right before this, right as we were starting, my bra strap came undone. And so I'm just in a goofy mood. But I do want to change the tone a little bit because we're going to be talking about mental strength today. And life can be super challenging. And so I just want everybody to know that we're going to be talking about some heavy things today. And it's important. It's important because we're all going to be going through tough chapters in our life. And we have a guest here that has been through so much. And her mission is to help capable women who are quietly falling apart rebuild a way of running their own mind they can trust, which is so powerful. I'm so excited to introduce Dr. B. Welcome to Ivy Unleashed.
Thank you. I'm so excited to share with you guys. And I was able to kind of watch some of your podcasts, and I just want to first just thank you for being real and vulnerable. We don't, we're all on a mental health journey, whether we acknowledge it or not. And I'm so proud of you ladies, just coming on here and just, being real and how hard things are. And when you're actually struggling with fear or anxiety, sadness, and being real with people. And we need more women, talking openly and feeling confident in that.
Yes. Thank you. That means a lot because I think there's such power in vulnerability, and all of our episodes where people are more vulnerable, it's what people relate to. We're going through this human experience, and sharing, it just opens the door for true connection, right?
Right.
Having a true authentic experience with another person can only happen if you are vulnerable. So thank you for that.
And a lack of isolation, because when we think we're alone, when we think we're the only one internally struggling, then we don't share. We don't tell other people. And so it's brave to take that first step. And I know that women listening are doing the same. So, follow these ladies. They're doing some good work. Hire them for coaching. I mean, it's just, I'm very impressed.
Thank you. That means the world. And something we recently started doing this season of Ivy Unleashed is instant impact. So we've been asking all of our guests the first few minutes of the episode, what is one thing you want listeners to take away from our conversation today?
Selfish is not selfish. We have to learn to take care of ourselves. I remember the first time hearing when traveling with my children that you should put the mask on your children before you put the oxygen mask on yourself. And your first instinct as a mom is like, hell no. I'm going to save my child first. But if you think that through, you could pass out, and then you both, something happens to both of you. So if we can learn to take care of ourselves first, which is not innate for women. We are caretakers. We are givers. We care for our children. We care for our spouses, our parents. We worry about everyone else around us, and then us last. And then and if we could flip that script and make an impact on ourselves and take care of ourselves, we can impact more people.
I love that. That's powerful. And I know you as an expert, what we know of you is someone that helps people build mental strength. And you've walked through fire yourself and endured unimaginable loss in your life. And so I think sometimes when you hear people like, oh, what do you know about mental strength? What do you know? You have been through the fire, and you help people walk through that fire.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about how you help people build mental strength. You know, maybe from the experience that you've already had, how you weave that into helping others build mental strength.
So I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner with a doctorate degree. I practice, I do cognitive behavioral therapy. I take care of a lot of people. But when I was in the midst of the hardest days of my life, that wasn't helpful for me. And other professionals were not helpful for me. And it started, I have, intense grief and trauma. But it started, I adopted 5 children, 2 biological children, great, what I felt was just this blessed family. And then my son, Johnny, died in a drowning accident. And tragedy just kind of turns everything upside down. But I did like every mother does. I just went full force into my children, right? I could just have to, make sure they're okay, take care of them. I can honestly say 20 years later, I did not grieve that grief at the time. I just didn't. And I think a lot of moms just are not stopping to take care of themselves in the midst of that. 6 months later, my son Reggie started having catastrophic epilepsy. And when I say catastrophic, like he would have 12 grand mal seizures in a day. He would not stop seizing. He wouldn't eat. He would be in the hospital, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. At the same time, my Johnny's biological sisters began rebelling. So they were adopted when they were 9, 10, and 12. So they came with their own trauma. And so they went into their adolescent years and they manifested their trauma like teen girls do, and which is every mother's worst nightmare for their teen. So here I was. I'm a professional. I'm a mental health professional. I should know how to handle life. And I've got 2 teens running away. I've got 1 seizing. And then we've never really dealt with the grief of Johnny's death. And I remember very distinctly calling my mom, crying, and being like, I can't do this. And I probably had some undertones of like hurting myself, right? And of course, moms in her fear were, oh my God, like doesn't know what to say. And she said, you should start journaling. And I can be completely honest. I thought, I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner. I know about journaling.
That's what you got.
Like, I don't mean to be mean, Mom, but this is not helpful. But honestly, I got off that call and I knew that I had to figure something out. And I got a piece of paper and I started doing what I now call a thought map. And it's this way of journaling. It's like 20 years of journaling in 20 minutes, the way that it all comes out on one piece of paper. And it brought up like these aha moments of, okay, this is the pattern. This is what's going on. I can do this. These are the tools that I need to start using. And then I realized there was a big gap between what we teach in mental health professionals and what self-development material. And I've always been kind of on a self-development journey. I read all the books and I try to incorporate those things. And I realized that there's this big gap between the two. And, mental health kind of talks about dependency, and you have depression, you have anxiety. It's, it's biological. And then you have the self-development world that says meds are bad. You can do this on your own, just push through, have grit. The poster child for mental strength is this guy, David Goggins. I don't know if you know him. Totally not feminine at all. Like, this is just not going to work for women, right? Even as a marathon runner, like this is not, and I don't know him personally, so I can't judge, right? But, are we just using that physical to stuff the feelings? Are we just using grit and resilience and pure discipline? But we all have a capacity limit. We all have a point where we're going to break if we're not taking care of ourselves. And so I kind of went on a tangent there, but that's where the Mentally Strong method was like developed, like in the midst of just feeling completely overwhelmed, trying to raise 6 kids, not grieving, one very, very sick. And little did I know that that was not even the beginning of my trauma.
I know we're going to get into that. Will you just pause and explain more about that journaling? You said 20 years in 20 minutes. Kind of walk us through what that looks like.
Yeah. Do you want to try it?
Sure.
Ooh.
Oh gosh, what am I agreeing to?
Which one of you?
Brooke, you go for it.
I brought it up.
Okay.
I'll do it. Do it. Buckle up, everyone.
So I want you to visualize like a piece of paper with a bunch of bubbles.
Okay.
Right? Little circles. And in the middle, this circle, we're going to really flesh out one thought or feeling. So I've seen from previous things like maybe fear, anxiety, sadness, like what's one thing that kind of repeatedly comes up for you or is evident right now, like is coming up for you right now?
I would say anxiety.
Okay. So we have anxiety in the middle. Now tell us and what causes anxiety right now in your life? What is going on?
Planning a wedding.
Oh, okay.
Building
What's
a
the
business.
worst thing that could happen at this wedding?
I get sick and can't attend.
Oh, yeah. Okay. What else? What are some other things you worry about in the wedding and in marriage in general?
I'd say forgetting something
Mm-hmm.
in the wedding. In the marriage.
I mean, you're committing to stay with someone for the rest of your life. There's no anxiety with that?
No.
Okay.
That's like, other than Andrea being my business partner, probably the most confident I've been with anything.
Okay.
I would say fertility is a fear.
Okay. And why is that?
Well, you don't really know if you're fertile until you start trying. Can't say I've
Okay.
really ever started to try to have a baby. I have a handful of people around me who deal with infertility, which is not something I want to go through. I have a lot of compassion for them and fear of money that it would take if we did struggle to have children. Time, being able to fit all of the things in and still having the energy and my health, juggling that, wanting to do all of the things.
Anybody in your family with fertility issues?
No. Not blood.
Any health things going on that would like put you at risk for that?
Maybe.
Okay.
Just taking notes
So-
for those listening.
Yeah. And then, I mean, is there like fear that your body is not good enough? I mean, is there,
Oh, totally.
okay. So, and I'm just going to quickly show you, I know this is a verbal podcast, but I'm like writing it. You see how
Okay.
messy it is?
So for people at home to do this, is it just like asking yourself questions of these emotions and putting them in the bubbles?
Yeah. So I put together something very special for your guests, and they will actually get like instructions on how
Amazing.
to do the thought map and be able to do that.
Nice.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
So it's getting it all out on paper, all the things, worst case scenarios, things you worry about, and just
we're not
getting
done.
get out of your body.
Oh, we're not done. So now I want you to think back of another time in your life in the past where you felt anxious.
Like a specific moment?
Mm-hmm.
Probably,
Event, a time in your life.
I would say like before teaching one of my first yoga classes.
Okay.
I still get anxious every yoga class. Don't think it goes away.
Okay. And what else was going on at that time? Like what goes on in your internal dialogue when you're afraid of performing?
Can I do this? Am I capable? Who am I to think I can do this? I don't have enough experience, education, the not feeling enough.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I want you to think back to the first time in your life, in your childhood, that you felt anxious.
Oh, God. Probably before performing for something with dance
Okay.
or a play.
You were in plays?
Oh, yeah, I was the sun baby.
And
the
what
solar
was your
system?
biggest fear there?
Probably like forgetting my lines or not knowing what I'm doing. I've always put myself in situations like recitals or piano and performing, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it causes anxiety.
Yeah, for sure. But I
So
still
you're
do it.
unconsciously challenging yourself. So that's good.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then how does this anxiety impact your spiritual relationship?
Oh, good question. Probably challenges like the trust.
Mm-hmm. So if you had this paper in front of you, you would, really flesh out all of those things. You don't need to write full sentences. That's the difference. Like when you're journaling, you're writing full sentences, and then you rarely go back and read all of those. It's hard to meditate on them because, if you journaled about this, it would be several pages of writing, right? We get it all on one piece of paper, and then you're looking at that and you're starting to see patterns. So what is a pattern around this?
Putting myself in situations that make me anxious.
Okay. So it allows you some self-accountability, right? Like I'm actually doing this to myself, right? So that's good. That should feel empowering. Okay. What's a negative thing that kind of came up as a pattern each time?
I would say the fact that I'm not trusting, the need to control the outcome.
Not trusting, and really back to what I said as far as the biggest impact, not trusting yourself. Like you're putting yourself in that situation, but then you're actually secretly believing you're not enough. You're trying to prove yourself, right? So in this short time, we brought up, we have 3 things. And in the Mentally Strong Method, there's 10 categories. Because what I learned from like all of the self-development books that I read are a lot of just positive thinking, right? Like if you just think positive, you can, do anything. And that is, positive thinking is amazing. And we absolutely need to be rewiring our brain into positive thinking. But that only helps our negative self-talk. It doesn't help the other things. So not trusting, that's really a spiritual thing between you and what you believe, right? And that should be worked out intimately in that spiritual realm, not, oh, I just need to think positive, right? Because if we truly believe there's an external relationship spiritually, then it's more than just talking positive. Like you need to, and we should all be working on our spiritual relationship. Like it's kind of one of those things, especially in the professional mental health field. It's like, oh, we can't talk about that. That's religion or whatever. And I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about we are physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual beings. And are you taking care of yourself spiritually? Are you working on that piece? So, I would sit with you and I would help you put these things into different categories. The not enough, I think you've done a lot of work. Like I said, I've watched some of the podcasts. You're working on that. It's there. You fight it. But there's this other piece, this, trusting piece that is more of a spiritual thing. This is not what's going on in your head, and encouraging you to work on that. And then the choices. So then, behaviors and choices is one of the categories. And I'll say, okay, so now that you realize I've just spent my whole life doing what causes me anxiety, and now you have a choice. Do I continue to do that because I do want to challenge myself and I do want to get better in this? And then it helps the next time it comes up because it's like, oh, I chose this and I'm continuing to choose this. So in the wedding, it's like I wanted to have a big wedding or, this specific thing, and I'm continuing to choose that. So I'm going to, like manage my anxiety better. And the other problem, and anxiety is a whole nother category. Anxiety is not just like positive self-talk. Anxiety, I like to think of it as a continuum. So you take, no anxiety, which in any stressful situation should not be true, right? That wouldn't be healthy. 10 would be like panic anxiety. We shouldn't be having panic attacks, right? And if you look at that as like a scale of 0 to 10, can you move that anxiety down a couple notches? The worst Bible verse in the whole Bible is do not be anxious about anything, right? Like that is when you tell yourself, don't be anxious, what happens to your brain?
You're immediately thinking about being anxious.
I'm sure that wasn't the intent of the verse, right? Yeah. But we need to think of it more as a continuum that I'm bringing down rather than making it go away. Anxiety is a biological response to stress. Now, if we keep choosing things and putting ourselves in chronic stress, like you guys talk about in a lot of your podcasts, then we create other physical problems from that chronic stress, right? So in the Mentally Strong method, it can be boiled down to 3 words. Can you think through your problems? Can you organize them? And can you make choices in line with what you really want? And those choices often should have to do with like, am I dealing with my past stuff? So a lot of people will come to me with pretty significant stories of grief and trauma, and they've been pushing through their whole life, right? They're like, well, that happened. There's nothing I can do about it. I went to therapy, minimally helped or whatever. I just have to push through. Or they're even avoiding like, like it's not impacting me, right? But they're chronically stressed. They're anxious. They have a lot of negative dialogue. Where do you think that negative dialogue started? Probably during your trauma. And I do want to stop and define the word trauma because it's used clinically in a very specific way. But if we change the word from trauma to injury, is anything that changed your perception of the world or yourself is an injury that you need to process. I can think of one of the first times I was at a family reunion and my uncle called me fat. And I always struggle with feeling like I'm fat. And so that is that's a minor thing. I'm sure we've all had, something like that, right? But being able to know that shifted something in that little child's mind that went on a different path, right? It allows us to course correct and go back and say, okay, well, that was ridiculous, for him to say that.
Yeah. How do you help people kind of, they pinpoint the injury? How do you help them change their behavior and their self-talk at this point, right? Like if someone said that to you when you were 7, it's still affecting you in your 40s, how do you help people kind of bridge that gap?
The injury, all trauma needs to be released. In my case, the grief and trauma got enmeshed and I needed to separate grief from trauma. The negative self-talk and the trauma needs to be separated. You are responsible and accountable for how you speak to yourself. And this is back to what I said in the beginning of like being selfish. Like the way many women talk to themselves, they would never speak to someone else like that, right? You would never say to your best friend what you say to yourself. And we need to shift that narrative of being compassionate for ourselves. So when you take that, injury, so, okay, I identified when's the first time I thought I was fat. But the fact that I keep telling myself I'm fat, that's my responsibility. And so when we separate these things into the categories, it's like, okay, here's your ownership, here's your release. Here's your ownership, here's your release, right? These are, things that you need to process. Now, sometimes the trauma is so severe that there needs a professional intervention for trauma. But as you know, yoga is an amazing way to release trauma.
The
You need
best.
to have that intent going in, right? Like you have that intent going in. I've studied a lot of, where the emotions are being stored in the body and how to release those with different positions, right? So, but being able to identify, here's the trauma, and you choose whether, you're going to work through that. But that personal accountability piece of, here's your choices. Here I chose to have a big wedding where I need to show up in a very specific way. Well, I chose that. I'm going to continue to choose that. And then it empowers us. Like, okay, the next big thing, you stop and go, okay, am I choosing this? Am I not choosing this? What does it bring up for me? Where do I feel it in my body? Is there trauma associated with how I feel? Is there negative self-talk? Do I think I'm not enough? Like, what parts do I need to work on? Because they're different, and they're different for everyone. And oftentimes we say, okay, well, sexual trauma causes this, or this kind of trauma causes this. And not necessarily. Everybody is different. I mean, but we do know that trauma impacts the body. Body Keeps the Score is probably the best layperson's book around, like, your body's keeping track. When I tell my story and I work with people who have lost children, they're like, I can't release this, that you're not going to release the pain of your child. And grief is not to be released. Grief is to be felt. And we don't like to feel pain. Everything is like, can we get the pain to go away? And when it's grief and trauma enmeshed together, you must separate the grief and trauma and release the trauma. Losing children is trauma, for sure. Releasing the trauma piece of it and holding on to the grief. Like, this is my story, and I am allowed to cry when I talk about it. I am allowed to acknowledge my triggers. For example, so I told you about Reggie, who was very sick. And then by the time he was, I think he was like 11 years old, they found this genetic disorder in him. And they tested the whole family, and my daughter and my husband had it as well. At that point, they had no symptoms. They were completely healthy. So all of the attention was still on Reggie and fighting. And I traveled the world, did all kinds of alternative and functional medicine, went from Japan to Canada to London, trying to find experts that could really help, have some sort of treatment for my son. He ended up passing away in 2016. And my daughter, who ended up having seizures and was delayed, beginning to delay at around age 12. She had never spent the night in the hospital, had never really been sick like her brother. She died in her sleep in 2021. Oh. And so when Reggie passed in 2016, I knew I had to share the Mentally Strong method with people. And so I opened Mentally Strong. I have a huge clinic in Colorado Springs. I began speaking on grief, thinking my daughter is fine. I thought from the time my son got sick to the time he passed was 10 years. So I thought, okay, when my daughter gets sick, I'll have 10 years from the time she gets sick. And she died in her sleep in 2021. And the Mentally Strong method became my safety net. Yeah. Like I said, everybody has a capacity limit, even when you are working on yourself, right? And, there were depths of, like, I just want to be with my children, right? Like, there was that kind of depression. And I know there's probably someone listening who has had suicidal thoughts, have been in the depths of that. And do not give up, right? Like find something that is going to release some of that pressure. But also it is a complicated journey. Like from that point, it is not just one right med or one right therapist. The title of my documentary is called Strength and Vulnerability. And I actually filmed 45 days of me choosing to grieve every single day and feeling that pain. And we must feel that pain as we try to separate the trauma and release the trauma. Because if we refuse to release the trauma, we're going to hold on to that, and it's going to tear us up on the inside, and it's going to, manifest in mental health concerns and, even physical concerns. So as you're able to separate these different categories, and then you know what to do with them. And yes, I did go through some trauma work, and I now do trauma work with people where we can actually release the trauma, but also honoring the pain of that grief. That I'm not releasing the pain of losing children.
Yeah.
I'm releasing the trauma enmeshed with it, so that, I can find joy, and I can live, and I can have energy, and I can, have a purpose outside of losing my children.
And I'm assuming the release, it's not a one and done. It's probably something you still do, but now you know what are some of those things like yoga, like breath work, like running, whatever physically feels like a release. Kind of like you don't go to the gym once, you keep up with it. You brush your teeth daily. Is it just a part of your kind of mental health hygiene, or?
We don't teach mental strength. We teach mental illness, right? And everyone knows that about physical health, right? Like this is a constant thing. You mean I have to eat right 3 times a day for the rest of my life? Like,
I am.
But we don't teach that in mental health. Like we're either surviving or we're just like avoiding.
Yeah.
And the Mentally Strong method is this system. I hope someday it's taught in elementary schools, right? Like, it is a system, just like a physical trainer has a program, a system for people. It's customized, right? But the basis of it is based on the physical biology, right? And the same with the Mentally Strong method. This is a foundation. If we can learn to think, organize those thoughts, make choices in line, it is continual. We here at Mentally Strong every morning for 15 minutes, we go through the Mentally Strong method with either one of us, or we're talking about a client. Like we're constantly thinking about how do we incorporate these things? What's still impacting us, right? I've got a big stressful day tomorrow. My granddaughter's going in for open heart surgery, and it's at the hospital that my son had to go to a lot, and it was always bad news. And I'm just the grandma. I have to be there for the parents, right? Like I've got to be the stronger one. And I can't pour out my triggers that I know are going to happen while I'm there, right? Because this is their stuff that I need to. And so I've been preparing, and I've been doing some of those things. I've been acknowledging, okay, these are the triggers that are likely going to happen, right? What can I do in preparation? Where am I feeling this in my body? For me, a lot of times it's in the throat chakra. And, so I do a lot of breath work or humming to try to, open that up, which is great because that's portable, right? You can have that with you anywhere. But movement, and movement is the way that we release trauma. And movement can be running a marathon, or it can be humming. Like movement is just anything.
Well, I choose humming.
Me too. I'm with you. I'm not a runner. Runners swear it's like the best therapy in the world. I'm not sure. Do you think it's
Yeah.
devastating?
Well, I was thinking about this the other day. I think part of it too is like, you hear about lymphatic drainage and like bouncing on the trampoline. It's like, that's what I'm doing. Like I'm outside. So it's helping with my mental health just to be outside. And then I'm doing the bouncing that people are talking about. So I think it moves everything through, helps my digestive system, helps all of that. And then I think it helps obviously with like cardiovascular and giving me endorphins. But I think it's more than just like burning calories,
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah. And it's a mindset thing too. I think, I always tell myself I hate running. And so when I'm running, I'm literally saying I hate running. So I'm like solidifying that negative neural pathway in my brain, which if I really wanted to learn to run, I would need to stop doing that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like stop that negative dialogue and finding what works for you. I have many people who will say, oh, I've tried breath work. It doesn't work. Okay. Something is going to resonate and align with you. You have to figure that that's the custom piece, right? But the movement piece is essential.
Yeah.
So finding what movement actually works for you. And unfortunately, I remember the year before my 50th birthday, and I'm 53 now, right? So like most of my life, I didn't really know what filled my cup. I knew I hated running. I liked some things here and there. And now I took that year and I'm like, I'm going to figure out what actually fills my cup, right? Not doing it because, they say you should run or they say you should lift weights or they say you should, do yoga. Like when I do like that really hot yoga, I feel amazing, right?
My girl.
When I lift like really heavy weight, I feel like I'm moving something out of my body. So I've been able to find what works for me. So yes, we should listen to some of the shoulds and see if we can incorporate those things, but really finding what aligns. And because if you're doing it because someone says that you should, you're not actually taking care of yourself, right? You're not actually filling your cup, because taking care of yourself is filling your cup, right? So that you can pour out into other people. Yeah. But if you're just exercising because they say you should and you hate it, right? If we were both doing the same routine, preparing for a marathon, and I'm saying I hate it, I'm feeling drained after every training thing, then this is not helping my mental health. I mean, I might be getting slimmer. I might be getting more cardiovascular health, but it's not helping my mental health and it's not filling my cup.
Yeah.
What I want to go back to something you said because it was really powerful. First, I want to clarify. You said you're either avoiding or what was the other one?
Surviving.
Okay. I want to go back to where you said you're either surviving or you're avoiding, because what I'm hearing and what you're talking about is everything in the middle of that requires accountability. And I think it's so powerful because you're saying take accountability for how you're speaking to yourself and make some different choices. But only you can take the accountability for what you're saying in your own mind. And that's what people do. They avoid it, right? They just like have a cocktail the second they can have a cocktail to turn it all off, right? Or they're in survival mode. They're going 300 miles an hour and they can't actually really think about it because they're doing it and they're surviving life. And so... And you've been in that space of having to just survive. Like what you're talking about, when I put myself in your shoes and I think about finding my daughter who passed in her sleep and like how I would even function from there. And then, you're talking about how to take care of yourself in the midst of that. Obviously I'm sure you gave yourself time, but I'm just thinking of this accountability in the middle of that had to be so hard. I'm sure you wanted to avoid it so much. Because there's nothing harder than that. So how did you get from surviving into starting to think about how you could take care of yourself?
I do think that God prepared me in multiple ways along the way, right? And just having these horrible traumas spread out, Reggie's life was traumatic. And so when he passed away, I would not pray for him to come back. I wouldn't pray that they save him because he was in so much pain. And working through the grief of that, it was almost exactly 5 years later that I found Maya. And it was the breaking point, but it was the breaking point with a strong history of knowing what works, right? And so, and I tell people that have gone through extreme grief, and obviously losing a kid. My husband also did pass away. So losing a spouse, losing children, losing anyone that you are like constantly connected to creates this thing inside you. And I think sometimes it's when let's say it's a sister, people are like, oh, that's sad. Like they don't even give you years to work through that, right? I think, and then with losing a child, I would say people gave me a good 1 to 2 years, right? But it takes at least 5 years of actively working through those things to feel confident that I have a purpose here. Like, what has happened with a lot of women that I work with is that they had a death in the midst of their children being young and needing them. They did nothing. And then their children, their living children are moving out, and they're an empty nester, and there's nothing left of themselves.
Yeah.
And so my cry out to women, and I said this in the beginning, like, we have to learn to take care of ourselves. We have to take the time wherever you are in your life to figure out what fills my cup and how do I deal with my stuff, because stuff is cumulative. If you're not dealing with it, and then we all hit a capacity limit, and unfortunately are going to have problems. Everyone's going to have problems. There's going to be the next thing. And it doesn't necessarily mean something absolutely horrible, but we are all going to have the next thing. And can you confidently say, whatever happens, I'm going to be okay? And most people are just surviving. And I definitely, I want to go back to that surviving and avoiding, because I don't want to be judgmental. I think people are doing the best that they can with what they have in front of them, right? Like, it is not, oh, you're just, trying to avoid. You're avoiding because that's all you know how to do. You're surviving because that's all you know how to do. And typical therapy is for when there's a specific problem. They do a lot of, cognitive behavioral work, some of the things that I'm talking about. But a lot of times it's not empowering. There's like a dependency around, oh, well, I need to talk to my therapist, or I need to, go process it with them. Like what I do is teach you how to do it for yourself, and knowing when you need that professional intervention, like in making those choices to, okay, well, you know what, I'm not doing it well right now. I'm going to, do some professional interventions, especially when it comes around trauma and stuff. They, and then there are biochemical, I do prescribe medication to people like that. There are times in our life where we need to take care of ourselves, because we also think we're not taking care of ourselves if we get to a point. I think there's people listening who think, if I have to take medication for my depression or my anxiety, then I'm not good enough, or I'm not taking care of myself good enough, right?
Yeah.
And stress in and of itself causes neurotransmitter dysregulation. So maybe you do need to take medicine, right?
Well, I like that you're normalizing. There isn't one size fits all. And you've given so many different ideas for people listening of maybe it is yoga, humming, breath work, CBT, medication. Like at the end of the day, what matters is that you're okay and you're taking the time to figure out what makes you feel okay. We have a couple more questions, but before we get into our that segment, I'm curious, your 3 gold stars. So top 3 takeaways you want to leave people with today based on your experience, your work, our conversation.
Just using those 3 words from the Mentally Strong Method, think, organize, choose. If you go into everything and you go, okay, I need to think through this. Now, effective thinking equals clarity. Ineffective thinking creates rumination and negative neural pathways. So if you are thinking 90% of the time and there's no organizing or action, then you're probably ruminating and you're making things worse. Just stop thinking, right? Like thinking should, and this is where traditional therapy can be helpful. Like, how do I think without doing this whole rumination thing? But there's also some studies on where talk therapy, if there's not a specific technique being used by your therapist, talk therapy actually can make rumination worse, right? The more we tell our narrative, when it's a negative narrative, the more you're solidifying that story. So in your life, as you know, in mental health, I want you to think. Now, organize the pieces that are going on in your head, even if you don't know the whole method, right? What are these pieces that I have control of, don't have control of? What am I supposed to release? What am I supposed to take accountability for? And then begin to make choices and make sure they're in line with who you are and where you want to be. So there is some work of knowing your values, knowing who you are, so that you can make choices. And if you're just surviving, you don't even know why you're making the choices that you're making. So you do need to stop and like figure out, who do I want to be? And, you know, so that your choices are in line with that, right? You know, mine has always been like, I want to make an impact on the world. I want to be a good mother, a good spouse, like good person, human, like make people feel empowered. And so when I'm making decisions, like, you know, for example, this surgery coming tomorrow, I could have chose to have someone else in the family there to support them, right? Like I could have, and they would have understood. They would, you know, like, but because I know who I want to be, I can make that choice and prepare for that. Right?
So good.
And so the three things are think, organize, choose. And it's so funny when I do classes and I'm like all the way through, I'm like, here's the three words. Remember them. I'm going to test you later. Like think, organize, choose. Think of your mental health like a flywheel. A flywheel is something that is repeated and creates momentum. So a wheel on a bicycle, right? When you're first getting started, it's kind of hard. You know, you're pedaling, you're a little off balance. But when you get momentum, bicycling is easy, right? Then you hit a hill, right? But if you have good momentum before a hill, you can get up that hill, right? And then you can gain more momentum when life is easier, right? But if you're constantly doing the mentally strong method and you're doing this flywheel over and over again, you'll be able to, you know, like use it in the good times as well. And so that when, you know, hard things come, you're like, oh, I got this. You know, I know how to think, organize, choose. So those are my three things.
I love it.
I love it. Okay, my final question. The woman listening who just feels like they're under a dog pile. They are hearing what you're saying, but they're like, I am just in the thick of it, going a million miles a day, but I don't have the energy. Like I'm just lost. I can't even think about myself. What would you tell her?
So grit is important and resilience is part of that grit, but that is an acute skill. It is not made to be a chronic skill. So you are not supposed to be in survival. So I would talk to them and make sure that it's not something that you absolutely do have to push through, right? But it should be, you know, an acute thing. And this happens a lot with like, I work a lot with special needs moms, right? That, you know, they're like, well, you know, this is a life thing. This is a marathon. I can't stop. If it's a marathon, you have to learn to pace yourself. You have to know what fills your cup throughout. You cannot try to sprint through a life situation that is a marathon. You will physically break down. Your body just can't do that. And so there are times like figuring out, is this an acute, you know, push through and I do need to do this? Or is this, you know, is this a chronic thing that's not going to go away? Okay, then I need to stop and decide how much time can I give to myself. and take it and be accountable to, okay, I'm going to do this. Otherwise, you can't help other people from an empty cup.
Yeah.
You can go through the motions, but relationship is also energy transfer, and you're from an empty cup. Even though you might be physically present, you're not actually giving.
Yeah. It's so true. Okay, my final question. I recently just was at a funeral and had an unexpected loss in my family. And because of the death and how sudden it was, I have like unhinged thoughts all the time of like random things, like giving less Fs, not caring what people think, random things like it could be gone in a second. You've had so much loss in your life. I'm curious, like, do you ever have any like unhinged thoughts that are like, that have helped you care less, or like a way that you live your life now because you're like, it could be gone at any point. This person could leave. I could lose this person. I could, have an unexpected death or something like that. Like, do you have any perspective that you have on life with all the loss that you've experienced?
Yeah, I really think this goes to a spiritual realm. We really can't fully process grief if we don't have a belief system of what happens after death, right? And your purpose here, and without like saying that it's not what I experienced is truth, right? Like, I do believe that people need to go on this journey, and it needs to be intimate. If you've seen my documentary, I talk about this a lot. Like, this was the hardest thing because I was like this born again Christian, like a missionary, like, and I truly believed that God was going to heal my children. Like, I believe that if I just did all the right things. And that creates a huge spiritual conflict, which another one of our categories is spiritual conflict. And that's what happens in grief and this sudden loss. Like, you're like, what is this? Like, it could be over in a second. Why are we here? And that would be in the spiritual realm of, like, let's take some time and think about that. Are we using a lot of our energy for things that aren't important? Yeah. One of my quotes is, make relationships a priority because it's the only thing that's eternal. Right? Like, everything else that we're doing is gone when we're gone. Yeah. Right? But our relationships are the only thing that's eternal. So absolutely. And just reframing it to, this is a spiritual question for myself.
It's powerful. We could talk about that for hours and hours. This has been such an honor. And as you're speaking, the questions that are coming up, you're just answering. So I feel like I'm just taking this all in. This conversation was meant for us today. Thank you for being here. We have one last question we ask every guest. If you could go back, tell younger Dr. B, maybe before you were a doctor, one thing, what would you tell her? What age would you choose?
You are enough. With all the hundreds, probably thousands of people I work with, 95% of people, one of their core connections is that they don't think they're enough. Yeah. And I definitely struggled with that in multiple areas.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Everybody we talk to struggles with that in some way, shape, or form, right?
But, like, why? Why is that? Why do you think that's the biggest struggle?
Probably performative. Those early life things that we were rewarded for performance, whether it's academic performance, obedience. I think it's kind of embedded in the privileged culture.
Yeah. I think too, what you said about relationships, what's most powerful, I think, is helping your closest people know that they are enough by telling them, by showing them, by giving them love. And I just want to hit home what Brooke said. I'm so grateful we got to meet you today. And you are a warrior. I mean, what you've been through and how you're taking it and alchemizing it into helping others and making an impact. Like, I hope that you trust that that's enough. Like, what you're doing is so special for people. And you could easily have taken your own life. You could have easily became a shell of a human and never figured out a method to help people, because we do need this mental strength. We do need it. We're all going to face big challenges, like you said. And I'm just grateful that this is the work that you're doing and that we got to meet you. And we'll share all the links so that everybody can find you and follow you. And so thank you for
I'd love to
sharing.
share a gift with your listeners.
Yeah.
I know, like I said, I was so impressed with your vulnerability. And I typically don't give out thought maps, because it is more of an advanced skill to go through this. But, women can do it. Like, you guys are smart. You're doing the work. And so I'd like to give you the instructions for the thought map. And this is going to take you step by step on how to do a thought map and how to gain some insight from that thought map. And you can do that right away. And then I'd also like to give them a free clarity session where they can sit with a coach and actually go over that thought map.
Amazing.
Thank you. That is such a gift.
We will get that link to you. It is, for people who are verbally listening, it is ivy.mentallystrong.com.
Okay.
Beautiful. Yes. And
ivy.mentallystrong.com.
we'll put that in the show notes. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
We leave our listeners with a piece of gold, a quote that speaks to you. Would you please send us off today with your piece of gold?
Take care of yourself. Stop. Do it. We all have a capacity limit. You don't want to break, right? You don't want to become a shell of a human. I love what you said there. Don't love it, but like, it's a really good description of, I think, how some people are showing up after really hard things.
This is Gold Ivy signing off.
Listen to your truth and go chase your gold. Oh, yay. That was so good.
Wrapping it up with a bow.
Yep.
It was so nice to meet you.